Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Morgan. I want to welcome you to our webinar today. Today we're going to talk about exploring our best practices toolbox. And I have to tell you, I don't know that I've ever been more excited about a webinar. This is a webinar that's going to focus on tools that will help you be more effective, more efficient in your design, help you wow customers, and even improve the way that you're presenting to them. In the agenda, we're going to focus on a number of areas. We're going to talk about organizing your toolbox, how to make your screen setups the most efficient that you can for your use, significantly reducing times in design. I'm actually taking my top 6 favorite or frequently asked questions that I get in 2020, and I'm going to show you how to resolve those quickly in your design. These first 2 categories, sometimes you look at it and think these are a little bit basic, and they are, but I guarantee that everybody on the conference today is going to find one of those items to be helpful in resolving an issue that you run into every day in your design. So I'm really excited about sharing those with you. We'll also talk about personalizing your design with tile with some new features in V11.5. We'll talk about easy, accurate, and exciting countertops and soffits, the idea center and how to inspire people with saved designs like islands and so forth. And then we're going to wrap this all up when we're dealing with renderings, presenting, and virtual reality solutions. I have a lot of folks on the line today, and we're going to share some of that information here in just a moment. But as we go through, one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is as you start to work in your 2020, you're going to find that a lot of these features are going to take you through some basic steps in design. But at the end, we're going to focus on virtual reality because that is the way showrooms are starting to show their clients their rooms, their spaces in real time today. Matter of fact, yesterday, and I'll do a little call out because I think both of you are on the phone right now, I got an email from Kansas City from a designer who's actually an NKBA chapter officer who was talking about setting their showroom up using virtual reality. And about an hour later, I got an email from a company opening up another showroom in Exton, PA later this month, and about how they're incorporating virtual reality in that showroom as well. So I'm going to share some really cool best practices with everybody on how we're going to do that. Now let's move right into our design, and let's start talking about organizing your toolbox. I'm going to go ahead and share my regular screen. I'm going to go through some really quick features in 2020 to help you when it comes to setup. I call these my favorite screen preferences or best practices. Each one of these are very, very simple, but they're going to help you set the screen to the way that you want it to be to work most efficiently. Let me show you a couple things that I do when I first get my 2020. First of all, the ribbon at the top of the screen. I typically right-click on the ribbon and I choose Minimize. When I minimize, the ribbon goes away and it makes my workspace much larger. Now you'll notice right now that I actually have a lot of verbiage on the screen, but if I were working on a real plan, I might be able to zoom in that large. I like to work in the largest space possible, and by removing or minimizing that toolbar, your ribbon, that allows you even more space on your plan. Now again, all I did was right-clicked on it and chose Minimize. When you're working and you click on any of your tabs, it will come back temporarily, but as soon as you start to work again, it goes away. Now let me go ahead and return that to the way it was. The next thing that I like to do is I like to place things in this quick access toolbar. You're probably all familiar with it. If you clicked on perspective, it would automatically open up a perspective. It's a one-click feature. Now that feature is also found, if I go to presentation, you'll see perspective here, but that takes a couple of clicks to produce it. What I like to do is any feature that I use often, I simply place in a one-click environment. So if I do reports often, see reports here? I would right-click on the screen. I would go to Customize Quick Access Toolbar. Right here where it says Commands, I can click on the arrow, scroll down the presentation, and in that list scroll down and find Reports. I can simply say Add. I can click OK. And if you look right here, I now have reports added to my Quick Access Toolbar. I do that for all of the features that I use most often. Now, on the right-hand side of your screen is a little button called Cloud. Sometimes it's locked into your screen when you first load 2020. If it is, here's what I recommend you do. Click on the arrow and choose Auto Hide. That will minimize it when you're not using it, and anytime you want to open it up, it will open up. Now, if you haven't done this yet, please, please, please go out and log in and create a login for the cloud. You'll see right here where it says register. All you have to do is go and register. You'll create a password, which I'm going to type mine in right now. Just give me a second, and I'm going to log in. And you'll see that I'm actually logging into the cloud. And once I'm logged into the cloud, this gives me access to the most up-to-date catalogs that are available. I can go into Browse, and anytime I want, I can click on an arrow and use Decor, Electrolux, or GE, or KitchenAid, or Kohler, or any of these types of appliance or accessory-type catalogs. Eventually, during the year, you'll find all of your catalogs are there, including your cabinet catalogs. And what's nice about it is you never have to go and download a catalog. You always have up-to-date information. All you need to be is online, and it automatically accesses the most up-to-date information at all times. Now, I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. I'm actually use that in a design. But again, remember, make sure you log in so that you have access to it, and click on the arrow here and choose Auto Hide so it minimizes it from your screen. Now, one of the things that I really like to do is modify my tabs, or you see the dimensions here. Sometimes I get questions about there's just too many dimensions for what you like to use in your design. If you wanted to modify that, all you have to do is double-click on the floor plan. It'll open up something called Display Settings. We're going to go to Dimensions. I'm going to scroll down to Auto Dimension, and see where it says there's a check mark, I should say, shows next to Auto Dimension. I am going to click on that twice to turn it off. Watch what happens when I hit Apply. All of my dimensions are gone. If I click on the plus next to General, and I simply put a check mark next to Construction, and I hit Apply, it'll actually put in the basic dimensions for my room, my walls, and all my windows and doors. That's what I like to use when I'm designing. So if you want to modify the dimensions, you can play around with these, set them up any way you want. As I like to do it, I turn everything off. I go to General, and I simply go to Construction Elements, turn those on. I hit Apply to save it to my screen. Now let me show you how to save it permanently. If I click Save As, I'm going to type in a name. I'm going to say John's Settings. I'll click Save. Now, when I close out of here, if I start a brand new kitchen, it'll go back to the old settings. Only this kitchen has new settings. But if I go to File, Preferences, and I go to Display Tab Schemes, see right here where it says All? If I click on the arrow over here on the right-hand side and scroll all the way down and choose John Settings, and I click OK, I have told my 2020 that every kitchen I do from now on, today, tomorrow, next week, next year, will automatically have the settings that I like. So you can go in and set the colors, the fonts, everything you want, even if you're just taking basic dimensions, set it up so that you never have to modify it again. You make your settings, you save it, you go to Display tab, simply go to the tab that you want, click on the arrow, and choose your setting. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and cancel out of here. I don't want to save that for my other designs just yet, so let's come back out of here. Let's open up an elevation. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Let's open up an elevation of that wall. Now when we open this elevation, you're going to notice that the cabinets have very little detail. I'm often asked, how can we make the cabinets look like they're line drawings? Well, there's a really simple setting for that. If we go to File, and we go to Preferences, this is one of my favorite best practices. We go to Work Area. All we have to do is put a check mark in 3D, and when I click Apply, you'll see that my work area is now 3D. And if I click OK, it will stay like that for every kitchen from now on. Now, I'm actually not going to click OK on this. I'm going to turn it back off again because I'm going to go back and run through this again in just a moment. So let me go ahead and Apply and turn that back off. Let's go ahead and right-click on the elevation and choose Delete. Now, the last couple of items here. When you're working in perspectives, for instance, if I click on perspective right now, if we give this a second, you'll see that a perspective starts to show up of my work-in-progress kitchen. I've just started to lay this kitchen out. Well, you notice I'm automatically standing someplace, and I can rotate from that point and move forward. I get a lot of questions from designers as to where are you really standing? They want to know exactly where they're standing in that room when they start. Well, if that's something you want to know, all you need to do is click on the camera down here in the lower right-hand corner. See this camera? If you click on the camera, in all of your drawings, it will always show you where the camera is. And you have the ability to hold your button down on it and move it around. I can move this camera around. I can actually grab the back of it and adjust it. Typically, I make all my movements while I'm in the perspective, but this shows you where your perspective starts. And the final best practice that I would recommend, and this is especially helpful for our new users, if you go to the very top of your screen and choose Help, you may not know this yet, but if you click on Watch Training Videos, it'll actually connect you directly into our dashboard for e-learning. So anybody new, anybody at all, anytime you want, you can go up to the training videos. You can click on the arrow here and go through the different subjects. Maybe I wanted to know how to modify moldings, or I wanted to know how to modify countertops. I can simply click on it, click on the subject, and a little 3 to 5 minute training video will start that you can watch over and over again. That is built into your 2020 standard. So anybody that hires somebody new, all you need to do is go in, let them know if they have questions, simply click on Help and go to the training videos. Now let's go ahead and go back to our PowerPoint for just a moment. And I'm going to go to the next screen. I'm going to take a little quick poll here. We have a number of people online with us right now. I'd like everybody to answer this poll real quick. How many kitchen designers, kitchen and bath designers signed up for today's webinar? Please go ahead and click on one of the items and then hit Submit to submit your choice. I'm going to give you a good 20, 30 seconds. The numbers are coming in rapidly. Very good. I'm actually going to go ahead and close the poll now. We have most of our universe already, so let me close the poll and let me show you the results. Some of you say 50. That's pretty good. Number one choice was 200. The second choice was 750. And in fourth place was 4,000. Let me go to the next screen and let me grab a pen and let me actually write how many people showed up today. 4,752 professional kitchen and bath designers registered for today's webinar. I want to take a moment and thank each and every one of you for doing that. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome feat, and we really appreciate that all of you follow us so closely in all the video series. So thanks again, and again, this is recorded so you can share this with everybody else you know in the business too. Let me go ahead to the next page. So let's go ahead and scroll on to the next one. And you'll see here that now we're going to talk about reducing some of your design time. Let me go back to my 2020 Live. And let me switch to another plan. Let me go ahead and close my favorite settings plan. This is one of my favorite things to do. Oftentimes when I'm meeting with people, if they tell me, say, hey John, show me something I don't know, I start really basic. And I laugh and go, let me show you something like how do you put a filler in a corner? Because I know that many of you out there, if I typed in BF3, you'll drag a filler over and try to drop it into a corner like this, and the filler puts it on an edge, puts it on an angle, but it doesn't go where you want. And then you might move things out of the way or hold the control key down and shift and move them into those areas. Let me show you a couple of quick tricks. If you want a filler to be placed to the right of this B27, all you need to do is click on the B27, double click on the filler in the list, and it placed it and it trimmed it to fit. Now that'll always work on the right. If you wanted to place a filler on the left, what you're going to do at that point is, and I like to place fillers in elevations, if I simply drag fillers over in the elevation mode, they will automatically snap into the places and line up. You'll see that this filler has been trimmed to 2 inches. So anytime I'm placing fillers in corners, I never move anything. I either click on a cabinet and double click on a filler to have it snap to the right, or I open up an elevation and place all of my fillers in the elevation. That's a cool little tool, and that's actually been the case for about 20 years in 2020. That's how you do it. Now, diagonal fillers. I get a lot of questions about diagonal fillers. You try to drag a diagonal filler over and you try to drop it into place and it pops it out here on an angle. What I recommend you do is zoom in. Take your base filler, drag it over until you see the double magnet. If you move it back just a little bit, you'll see the second magnet disappears. It'll drop the filler in and trim it to fit. If I drag the filler over here and I moved it back again, let's say we move it back again, drop it in, trims it to fit. I could go all the way around to the other corner and do the same thing just by dragging it, waiting for the second horseshoe to disappear, and it snaps in and trims to fit. So 2 quick questions I get about fillers all the time. Let's move to range hoods. Range hood is a really popular question. A lot of times people will drag a range hood in, they hold the control key down, they try to jimmy it in, try to move it around. Let me show you how I place range hoods. If I'm actually going to attach a hood to a cabinet, all I do is double click on the cabinet. When I go into the cabinet, I go to add-ons. If I'm in a catalog other than sample F, I'm in a generic catalog right now, maybe you're using a real cabinet manufacturer's catalog. If you're in their catalog, all you have to do is click on this arrow and go to sample F or go to an appliance catalog. When you do that, it'll open up appliances. I can click on hood. I can put a check mark next to range hood, and now it's attached to the range hood automatically. I didn't have to drag anything. I didn't have to jimmy anything. It snaps right on. Now, let's say that you're not doing it that way. You're actually going to place a hood not attached to a cabinet. I just deleted the cabinet. Let me show you how 2020 Cloud would have done this. I can go into 2020 Cloud. I can actually click on an appliance company. Right now I have Miele selected. I can choose what type of appliance. I already have hoods selected. I can then come down and actually click on the hood that I want to place. If I want to, I can read about the hood here, or I can simply say Add. When I click Add and move out on the screen, I have a hood that I can simply move into place. And when I snap that hood in, if I go back and take a quick preview of this, let's do a quick perspective, you will see that I've automatically attached that hood. And I can grab hold of that hood and move it up and down. Pretty simple. Again, one of the best reasons for you to use the cloud is because you're using the most up-to-date and accurate data possible at all times. You never have to worry about updating it. Now let's move in here and talk about moving islands a little bit. I get this question all the time. We have an island, and if I go and measure this island, I'm going to say, how far is this island from this edge to that edge, and I'd like to know how far it is from this edge to this edge. Now hang with me for a minute. I have 2 more that I think are fairly basic items that I bet a lot of you don't know, but we're going to move right into some really cool ways to apply backsplash tiles, virtual reality, and so forth as we build this. Now if I zoom in just a little bit, and you look right now, you'll see that my island is 36.5 from the front of the range, the countertop is, and it's 39 5/8 from the front of the countertop of my sink. See this little feature over here called placement? If I draw a box around that island, I can click on the center feature right here. It's called Move. You see my cursor right on top of it. And I can type in a dimension. I could type in 5.5. If I want this dimension to be 42 inches, I need to move it 5.5 inches. If I hit the down arrow, I just moved it 5.5 inches. 39 5/8. If I want that to be 42 inches, I need to come back over here and I need to type in, what's that, 2 3/8? 2 space 3/8. I'll move it to the right, 42 inches. Again, all I did was draw a box around it. Simply come over here, click Move, and type in how far I wanted to move it. And it moves everything. It moves the island, the appliances, the sinks, the chairs, the people, the plants, anything attached to it. You could do that with any group of items. Now let's move into 2 of my favorite countertop features. Oftentimes I'll have a drawing, and let me open this up really quick. So let's open this up. And I'm going to move my drawing just a little bit, and I'm going to tilt it and zoom back out again a little bit. And you will see, oops, a little bit too far. You'll see here that I have an island with a knee wall, and I have a little tiny countertop that I've placed on top of it. Maybe I want to have a top that mirrors the countertop here. I want to extend it 12 inches, 15 inches. How do you do that? If you right-click on the countertop and choose the countertop and choose Edit, most people will left-click on this line and move it, then they try to move this point, then they try to move that point, then they try to make it look like it's straight. Let me show you the proper way to do it. If I right-click on that line and highlight it, there's an option called Move and Intersect. If I simply move to the left, you notice my counter right here, it says it's a negative number right now. If it's negative, it just means it's moving to the left. If it's positive, it's moving to the right. If I want to extend this 12 inches, I will type in -12, enter. I then right-click on this line, move and intersect, -12, enter. I then click on this line, move and intersect, -12, enter. When I'm finished, I say Accept Change. There's my countertop, and if I go back and take a look at my view, you'll see now I have a bar top on the back. Did you notice how easy that was? I didn't have to move points. I didn't have to change lines. I didn't have to jimmy with it afterwards. It's perfect. Again, the feature that I used for that was Move and Intersect. Intersect. This happens when you're doing a drawing. Two cabinets, the backs touch, they're on an angle, but the countertop doesn't fill the gap. Again, most people will go in, highlight it, go to Edit Shape, and then they'll try to take these points and move them or delete them and so forth. Here's the right way to do this. All you have to do is go to the left side of the countertop and right-click. See the feature called Intersect? If I click on Intersect, I simply left-click on the line that I want it to intersect with. The countertop is now perfect. So again, how I did that was I right-clicked on the line and I chose Intersect. I left-click on the other line and they connect automatically. Didn't have to move points, lines, anything. Automatic. So let me zoom back out of here again. You can come back and take some notes. Move and intersect. Intersect are the commands you're looking for. Now let's go back out and let's go back over to our PowerPoint for just a moment. So we've talked about some ways to significantly remove or reduce time in your design. I'd like you to answer a question while I'm talking here. Do you use the Surface tool in 2020 to apply backsplash to walls? Please go ahead and answer that for me. Even if you are using it, I'm going to show you some new cool ways to use it. Now, when you're doing things like placing a filler in a corner or changing those lines on the backsplash or changing those lines on the countertop, I want you to think about how much time that saves you in every design by being able to do it like that instead of having to mess around with it and so forth. So even if there's only one or two of those 6 things you didn't know before, hopefully we've given you a significant amount of time reduction in your design. Now, I am going to go ahead and shut down the poll, so I'm going to close the poll. And if we give it a second, you will see that almost double, actually almost 2/3, I should say, of you say you do not use the Surface tool. So I'm about to show you, 2/3 of you, something new in how you put backsplashes in. For the third that do use it, I think I'm going to show you some new cool things that you may not be aware of. So we all want our designs to look awesome. We want our clients to see realistic backsplashes. We want them to have the right expectations of what they're going to have in their design. Let me show you how I do that in my designs. Let's go ahead and share again. So give me just one moment. We're going to go back to our design, and I'm going to close this design, and I'm going to open up one more design. So let's go to a full kitchen now. So you'll see here some best practices. We're going to start with personalizing with tile. You notice that the camera's open here? Because I left the camera open from the other designs. So you can open and close that if you want, but if you leave it there, you always know exactly where you're standing for your perspectives. I know a lot of you like that. So again, we do that by clicking on the camera in the lower right-hand corner. Now let's open up an elevation. I want to put backsplash on this wall. So let's open up an elevation. So here's the elevation of my wall. Under the Items command, or Items tab, is something called Surface. If you click on Surface, Surface allows you to trace or draw areas. You can draw floor surfaces, wall surfaces, whatever you want, and you can apply textures to it. The way it works is you move your cursor over and you simply click at a starting point. And then everywhere you want to change direction, you simply move to that point and you click. For instance, I'm going to go to the top of the cabinet here. I'm going to scroll over to the top of the cabinet here, come down to the bottom edge of the cabinet, all the way over to the tall cabinet, back down to the top of the cabinet, go all the way back to the beginning. And here's the key. Wherever you started, you clicked, you want to end at the same place and click again. Once you do that, you can right-click and you're finished. Now, when you right-click and finish, it'll come up, it'll show you the default tile that would be placed. Now, this is not the tile that our customers are choosing today. Let's go in and put some real tile in. If I click on the Browse button right here, and we give it a second, this is the part that's going to be new for a lot of you. If you're already using tile, you may not have seen this screen before. In 11.5, when you click on it, it comes up and it gives you these beautiful thumbnails of all of the generic tiles that are available. Okay? Now, you could also go over and say, I want to go to a texture library. What's a library? A library is something that you and I created. 2020 didn't create this. IT development didn't create this. You and I go out and get our own tiles, real tiles, and use them in a kitchen for a client. So I can actually show them what their backsplash is really going to look like. If I click on the circle next to user texture, you'll see that I've already placed or saved 4 tiles. These are real tiles from real websites. If I clicked on this, see the pattern appears here on the right? I can determine how the scale, 12 inches by 12 inches, I can make it 15 inches, 18 inches, 20 inches, whatever space it's supposed to represent. I can click on appearance, I can click on the Browse button here and actually make it glossy or satin or flat or whatever I want. And then when I click OK, it'll change my tile. But I don't want to do that. I'm going to show you how to go get a tile and import. I've already imported these 4. The way you import a tile is you click on this button right here. This is called Browse. When I click on Browse, it'll give you a list of tiles. Now, what are these tiles? These tile patterns are tile patterns that I have gone out online and saved on my computer. You'll notice that under Documents, I have a 2020 file. This is actually a file that I copied from one of my other computers. In that file, I created a folder called My Textures, and inside that folder, I created Wall Tile. If I just clicked on My Textures, you'll see that I have folders in here for brick and door samples and pictures and stone and tin ceilings. But I want to be on Wall Tile, so here's Wall Tile, and these again are images that I saved. So let's say I want to use this tile. If I click on that tile and simply click Open, it brings it into 2020. It shows me a preview. It asks me what size it's going to be. And if I click OK, it'll change my tile backsplash to that tile. When I come back out of here, if I want to take a quick view of this, let's let this render, and I'm going to zoom in on this once this renders. So if I zoom in, I'm going to tilt it. Let's say we look down at an angle on this. We give it a second to render. It'll start rendering on your side. By the way, you have a little bit of a delay from what I have as we push this online because it's a lot of data that we're pushing. And if I give this about 10 seconds, it'll clean this up until it's photorealistic in application. Now, that's pretty cool because I could trace and put tile anywhere. I could trace and put borders in my tile. I could trace sections and add anything that I want, floor or walls. Now your question is going to be, John, how did you get those tiles? Let me show you. If I go to my browser, you'll notice that I have a number of tabs already open. One of the tabs I have open is actually at a tile shop's website. I could be at Doll Tile, I could be at Tile Bar, I could be at any of these sites. They already have thumbnails created of tile. All I need to do is go in and right-click on the thumbnail of the tile and see where it says Save Picture. If I click Save Picture, it'll open up, and if it doesn't go right to your folder, you just simply go through your documents to the folder where you save your tile, and if I click Save, it will actually add that tile to my portfolio, and now that tile would be available for any of my designs. And by the way, I'm showing you wall tiles. This could be stone, brick, it could be ceiling tiles, it could be wood floors, it could be wood graining, it could be countertop textures, it could be wallpaper. It could be anything that you want to use in your kitchen, in your bathroom, in your interior design to show the client exactly the materials that they're getting. Now, it's a representation. It's not dead on when you see it, but it's really good. The clients get really excited by it when they see it. So let's go back over to our 2020 again. And let me go ahead and remove that elevation. So let's go ahead and delete the elevation. And let's go back to our PowerPoint for a second. So that was personalizing with tile. Next, let's talk a little bit about countertops. Now, when I go into countertops, I'm going to talk about easy and accurate countertops. And there's a couple of different things that I would like you to see here. So let's go in here, and I'm going to click on Share Again. So let's go back to my 2020. And I like to place countertop in this room. Now, let me talk about a few ways a lot of you use this. And I really should have probably done a poll on this. But I bet if I did a poll, I bet 60% of you use the feature called countertops and trim. Countertops and trim is the old way of placing countertops in a room. Lots of people still use it, and let me give you a helpful hint if you do. If you use countertops and trim, see right here where it says countertops? My best practices when it comes to countertops is to change the model to square foot. I would bet that if I were to look at your computer, most of you are set at the very first setting, which is called slab. And if you click Add, it puts countertop in. It'll give you these little blue lines and so forth because I've extended the countertop beyond what its range really is. And if I looked at the corner, it has a miter. Using this feature automatically puts seams in. We really don't want that in our designs. Most of us just want a countertop layout. We'll have the fabricator worry about seams and all of those other things. If that's the case, we're going to go to countertops and trim, click on the arrow, go all the way to the bottom and choose square foot. If I hit Add Now, watch what happens. Number one, I don't get the blue lines on my countertop on the island. Number two, no seams. It makes your countertop drawings much more efficient for what you're trying to use. So if you are using the old way, I'm going to undo this, make sure that you go in and you change this setting to square foot top. Now, after showing you how to update the old way, I'm going to tell you I never use the old way anymore. I always use what's called Countertop Wizard. Now, before I go to Countertop Wizard, let me show you something. You might go into your 2020 and see that the Countertop Wizard is grayed out. If it's grayed out and it's inactive, it's because you haven't activated it yet. All you need to do to activate the Countertop Wizard is go to 2020.net, log in. This is where you find all of your catalogs. Look at all these manufacturer catalogs, Decor, Thermador, Stanisi, Kohler, on and on and on. Go to 2020.net, go down to the section where there are the generic 2020 catalogs, and you want to download two catalogs. Design Plus catalogs, I'm sorry, let me do this again. Countertop Wizard catalog in Imperial. We have them both in French and English, depending on where you are in North America, and also Countertop Wizard in metric. Download them both. And then you simply load them as you would any other manufacturer's catalog. Once you load these, when you go into your floor plan, you'll notice the Countertop Wizard is now active. And then you can go back to 2020 Wizard. You can click on it. I mean, you can go back to 2020.net, and you can download Cambria and Decton and Sensa and Silestone and countertop, actual real countertop catalogs. If I click Next, when I choose a catalog, it'll actually give me thumbnails of all of the different patterns. I could choose Berwyn, let's say, and simply click Next. If you've never used Countertop Wizard before, it could not be more simple. All you do is answer the question and hit Next. Right now it says, what thickness is the countertop? I'll say 3 cm. Next. Do you want to auto-design it? Yes. Next. There it is. Is that acceptable? Yes. Next. Do you want a backsplash? No, because I'm going to put tile in. Next. What type of edge do you want? I'd like to use the Piedmont edge. Next. Do you want to define your sink? Yes. I'll go in and say my sink is a drop-in sink and it's going to be non-cast iron. I'll click OK. Now it's going to do a sink cutout. Next. It's going to ask you some questions for obstacles and additional cutouts and so forth. But if you're actually designing over top of a real kitchen, it automatically has those in there anyway. You don't have to answer that. But there is one question you do have to answer, and that question is placing edges. You simply click wherever you want that Piedmont edge to go. Watch this. I'm just going to go ahead and put the Piedmont edge on all of these surfaces. Once I've done that, if I click Next, and then I finish, if you give it a second, you now see as you move around, see these little green lines? That means that you now have countertop. If I go back and take a look at my countertop, let me back up just a little bit so you can see the countertop a little bit better. So let's zoom in and we'll tilt a little bit. Let me move in so we get a little bit of a close-up. If you noticed when I set this up, I think I chose Cambria and I think I chose Berwyn. If you give it a second to render on your side, look at the texture coming through. So I have, and I forgot what paint color I'm using. I'm actually using an off-white Sherwin-Williams paint on the cabinets. You'll notice that they're full overlay shaker with a more of a transitional drawer pull. I've used a real tile on the backsplash on the wall, and my countertop is Berwyn from Cambria. I get questions all the time. How do you make great drawings? It's by using real materials. If you're just using generics, you're getting generic output. Use real live textures. Now let me come back out of here just for a second. Let me show you a couple things you may not know. So even if you are an expert at using the Countertop Wizard, which I bet a lot of you are, let me show you a couple things you don't know. Number one, see down the countertop? If I click on countertop, it gives me a countertop drawing. But you know what? That is not the countertop drawing that you or I want to use. If you right-click on the floor plan, there's a feature here called Display Settings. When I go to Display Settings, I can go in right here where it says Scheme. Remember before, I turned off the dimensions and I called it John's Settings? Well, I can go in right now, click on this arrow, and there's actually a setting called Countertop Report. Watch what happens. Let me move this over just a little bit. Watch what happens when I click Apply. Now what's cool about this, see it's Countertop Report? Remember I told you before that you can go to File, you can go to Preferences, and you can save schemes to be whatever tab you want them to be? If you like Countertop Report, there's another one called Countertop Wizard. If you like this report, you can save it. So every time you're in the All tab and you design a kitchen, you put countertop in, every time you click on countertop, that's exactly what you see. It shows the Piedmont edge, it shows your appliance edges, it shows your sink center lines and overall dimensions. And there's one other thing you may not know. If you go to Presentation, now presentation is typically where you would go in and do your views, perspectives, elevations, top views, on and on. There's actually a feature over here called Reports. And most of you go to Reports when you're going to quote your kitchen. You're going to go to Quote, you're going to see all the cabinets, what the individual cost is on the cabinets. There's actually a report here called Countertop Plan. If I click on Countertop Plan, now this could take a second to set up, but if I click on Countertop Plan, it's actually going to go around the room. It's going to give me the option now of viewing the countertop plan. And again, if I wait 1 or 2 seconds here, you're going to see the countertop plan is going to pop up on the screen. And then I'm going to be able to go to a page, and it's going to give me detailed information on the countertop plan. Just get it as it goes through this, so we'll have a plan here in just a second. There we go. If I click on the arrow to go to the second page, here's your countertop plan. It says Manufacturers Cambria. Oops, hold on just a second. I jumped ahead. It says Manufacturers Cambria. Here's all the details. And look at this. It says I have Cambria Berwyn. I have 88 square feet of 3 cm material. I have 614 linear inches of Piedmont edge. And I have 102 linear inches of appliance edge. If I were to have modified, let's say we radius the corner in the countertop, you'd see a radius corner here. You actually see the types of modifications listed here for you to communicate with your fabricator. And maybe you're doing a quick estimate on price. Here's your information to base that price on. That is set up standard in 2020. You don't have to do anything other than go to Report and click on Countertop Plan. Now again, that works when I go to Items and I choose Countertop Wizard. So that is my best practice for laying out countertops. If you still want to use the old way, that's okay. You're just trying to get a countertop to draw, make sure you change that to square foot countertop when you do it. But I highly, highly, highly recommend you use Countertop Wizard. Let's go back over to our PowerPoint again, and let's take a look at our next slide. And our next slide is going to talk about Idea Center. And I don't have a poll on this one. I do have another poll here in just a moment. But what I would like to do is I'd like to introduce you to how people are using the Idea Center out in the field. So let me go ahead and share again. We'll go right back to my drawing. There we go. Now, and actually, let me take a step back. I'm going to delete my countertop for a second. So let's go back and delete, because I want to show something moving, and all those countertops are connected, so it'll take a second for them to move. And I'm going to adjust my plan to the right. So I've moved my plan over to the right. Over here in your catalogs, there's a feature called drag and drop. If I click on that, this is where most of you find your catalogs. Now keep in mind, I told everybody in the very beginning, make sure you're going to 2020 Cloud and registering, because your catalogs are transitioning over there, and they are removing the necessity for you to load catalogs. You no longer have to worry about that. Your catalogs will automatically be up to date. Right now, appliances and accessories and things like that have moved, but your cabinet catalogs are still over here in the drag and drop, so you're going to see some transition. But as you go through your catalogs, you may have noticed over the last couple of years that there's a couple of catalogs in here called My Closet, My Kitchen Islands. And they're actually empty. If I click on My Closet, there's nothing there. If I click on the arrow and scroll down and click on My Islands, you'll notice that My Islands is actually populated in my plan. Why? Because I've been saving islands. And the way you would save an island is you would draw a box around the island, you would grab hold of it, and you would drag it, and you would simply drop it in there. You notice there's two little boxes next to my cursor? That would automatically allow me to drag and drop that island into place. Now let's say we're going to delete this island. I'm going to delete that island. Now when you drag and drop that, what that means is you now have the ability to place that island in a future kitchen. So let me give you an example of how I see people doing this. Matter of fact, I was working with a rather large company last week where they're trying to empower their designers to make closes faster when they're in person with a client. And one of the ways they're doing that is they're creating libraries of island options. So if you sit down with me and my family and you start to lay out a kitchen and you ask, what do you want? And I say, you know what, the family would really like to have an island. We've never had an island before. And I really don't know what kind of island I want. Well, instead of drawing a couple of islands, meeting with me again a week from now and getting my opinion, very quickly you could go over to the islands you've already saved. You could drag them over and simply move them into place and say, hey, John, what do you think of this island with the radius eating area? And I go, oh, that's okay. What else do you have? Well, I can hit undo. And I can say, well, how about just a basic island and drop it into place? And I say, well, I really like that because I have sink and so forth that I can move, but I want to move the sink to this side. That's not a problem. Because what you're trying to do is get an idea of what I want, and then you can quickly make the changes to meet that need. But the big benefit is you're actually speeding up the sales cycle because you're allowing me to make decisions faster. We can quickly go through and see these. If I wanted to see what a batwing island would look in there, I love batwing islands, but it's probably not appropriate for this kitchen. So we can go ahead and just drag it back over and drop it into place. So you quickly can grab anything. So let me just go ahead and drag this island over. I'm just going to leave this island in my kitchen. That island is now part of my kitchen. Your next question should be, well, John, how did you create these folders? Well, My Kitchen Islands is automatically set up in your 2020. You don't have to do anything special. But you might want to create a folder for bathroom vanities. You might have certain alignments that you use over and over and over again. You might have unusual countertop shapes. Maybe you have signature pieces that you use in drawings. Or maybe you custom modify cabinets and you have a signature modification you typically make in a kitchen that tells everybody that that is one of your kitchens. Well, instead of creating those over and over again, you can simply drag them over to a folder and drop it into place and save it to be reused. I look at it as we take our brilliant ideas from yesterday and we are recycling them or using them or leveraging them to inspire clients to make faster decisions today. Because yes, this island might be different. Maybe there's a cabinet faces out to the right. But you're not wasting days trying to figure out what a client wants. You can figure out instantly just by dragging and dropping about what they want, and then you can move forward to solving that need so that you can get them to sign the bottom line faster. Now, how do I create these folders? If I go to File, there's an option under File called Idea Center. If you click on Idea Center Management, it'll actually come up and show you the folders that have been custom created. I can go in here and say, add a library, and I can give it a name. I will call this John's Library. Or it might be John's Custom Cabinets, or John's Countertop Shapes, or it might be Google Import Images, or whatever it is. You can come down and give it a description. I'm just going to type in 123 right now. You can actually add a logo to it if you wanted to. And when you click Save, so again, I clicked Add a Library. I filled in these two items only. I hit Save. It says my library's been saved. When I close, watch what happens. If I go to my drag and drop menu and click on the arrow, I can scroll down. There's actually a library called John's Library now, and I can start adding cabinets to it. Now, one key to this, when you create libraries, you do have to turn 2020 off and turn it back on again before you can start building things inside of the library. So whenever you create a new library, just turn it off, turn it back on again, and it will be active from that point on. What's cool about this is you might have multiple designers in the office. Well, you know what? You can not only create libraries per designer, but if I create a library of particular shapes or islands that everybody likes, and there's 5 designers in the showroom, I can go to File, I can go to Idea Center, I can go to Management, and see where it says Export? I can actually export that. And then I can take it to your computer and import it into your 2020, and you can have a folder with 20, 30, 40, 50 islands in it. So you can share this information amongst your design team. Pretty awesome. I love it because I'm all about decreasing or the time it takes for somebody to close or increasing those close ratios. And the more that you can help inspire people up front to make decisions like that, the faster you do that, the faster everything else happens in the process. So Idea Center is one of my absolute favorite features in 2020. Now let's jump back over to our PowerPoint, and let's go in and let's do one more item, and then I'm going to take a poll. Actually, I'm going to take the poll first. We're going to go in and talk about easy renderings and so forth in virtual reality. Let me share some really cool things that have happened recently. Do me one favor. Would everybody go and take this poll for me? On this poll, I'd like you to see where it says, do you present designs to your 2020 using a 2020 closing room and wall-mounted TV items? What I mean by that is when a customer comes in, do they sit down in your showroom and you take them to a room and you put the 2020 drawings on a big screen on the wall to discuss it? If everybody would just answer that for me, that would be awesome. Let me give you a second to answer that because they are coming through fast and furious. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll now. I know we still have some people answering. I only get about a quarter of the people to answer, but you'll see right here that I take that back. I'm well into the thousands when it comes to answers right now. It says, do you present designs, use your client? Always is actually in third place. Sometimes is in third place, I should say, and almost 2/3 of you never ever present to somebody like that. which is really interesting because I see this growing rapidly in the design community as I go around the different showrooms. And let me show you how people take this to the next level. I'm actually going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to stop for a second. I know everybody's taking notes, but do me a favor. On a separate piece of paper or someplace special, I want you to write 2020spaces.com/panorama. Again, that's 2020spaces.com/panorama. And this is what I want you to do for me. I want every one of you, when the webinar is done, to take out your cell phones, your smart devices, and I want you to type this into the browser. And when you type it into the browser, you're going to see this. See this little button right here? That is going to take you into a place where you can view 360 panoramas, as well as set up virtual reality presentations. Now, let me show you what that looks like live for a moment. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go to another screen that I have. Hold on just a second. I need to share my screen. I apologize. There we go. I'm sharing my screen. You'll see that I'm actually on the site itself. And see where it says Browse 2020 Panorama? If you click on this, you will actually have images that you can turn left and right, look up and down. I'm actually doing this on my computer. But what happens is when you go to this on your cell phone, you can hold your cell phone up to your eyes, turn right and left, look up and down, and actually see like you're moving around the room. That's cool. And if you're really excited about that, that's awesome. But I'm going to tell you that that is 3-year-old technology. We've been doing that for more than 3 years now. And a lot of our users have been doing it for that long. So when you hear clients talk about, hey, I met with this designer, it was really cool, I could stand in my old kitchen, hold my phone up to my eyes, and turn and see what my new kitchen's going to look like, this is what that designer's using. They're using 2020 360 panoramas. What's new is this. When you go in, and let me go back to my screen for a second, what's new is this. When you do this on your cell phone, there is a brand new button right here. That button is a pair of goggles. And what that does is it takes the 360 image and turns it into a virtual reality image. It'll actually divide it up into a left eye, right eye. So if you have a pair of goggles, you can slide your phone in the goggles and you can turn right and left, look up and down, and you really feel like you're in that room. Remember I told you, I mentioned 2 designers I talked to yesterday? My one designer friend who has a couple of locations here in the Maryland and Pennsylvania area, she already has one of her showrooms set up where when you sit in her closing room, she gives you a pair of goggles. You slide your phone in the goggles, and you feel like, you stand up and you feel like you're actually in that room because the goggles completely encompass your eyes. They don't allow you to see anything else except your room. Now, I have a franchise group right now that has thousands of goggles that they're handing out through their stores. I have a number of other customers that are using virtual reality in multiple ways. So let me tell you how all of these people became virtual reality technicians and experts, and how you can go from being a kitchen and bath expert to a virtual reality expert. It's actually pretty simple. Let me share my screen again for a moment, and let me jump back into my 2020, and I'm going to go back into my 2020 rendering. Remember my 2020 rendering from before? Here's my rendering. And you already know that if you move up and down with your mouse and left and right with your mouse, by the way, I got rid of the old countertop, so you don't see the Cambria countertop anymore. So you can move left and right, you can roll in and out, you know all those things. If you want to change lights, you can click on the lighting option. If you want to look at it in a different mode, whether it's hidden line or you wanted to look at it in wireframe, you click on the gear and you actually make those changes. I always work in texture, by the way. So I'm going to come back to texture. And if you want to know more best practices when it comes to actual renderings and so forth, just like this webinar, we've done webinars throughout the year, and we did a whole hour-long webinar on just how to create realistic renderings. So please go online and do that. And if you want to grab your pencil again, go to 2020 spaces /webinar / actually it's 2020spaces.com/webinar / and you'll see all of our webinars there, so you can sit this evening and go through that. But right now I want to focus on the best practice to making you a virtual reality expert. Here's how we do that. At the top of the screen, there's a button right here. It looks like a camera. It's called 360. I bet a lot of you use that already. If you click on that, it's going to ask you, where do you want to stand in the room? I almost always click Auto Center, which puts me right in the middle of the room. See where it says Quality? I typically choose High. Let me do that again. And then I click the button called Publish. Now, when you click the button called Publish, it's going to ask you for your name, your email address. It's going to ask you for your customer's name, and if you scroll down, their email address. When you click that button, it is not instant. It's going to take some time to build this 360 virtual reality world. But when it's done, it will send a link to your cell phone and to your client's cell phone, and then all they do is click on the link, and their phone is now a 360 viewer. So I'm going to backtrack just for a second. How do we make you experts at this? All you have to do is click on the button. You don't have to know how it builds 360s. You don't have to know anything about virtual reality. All you need to know is to click on this button right here and then answer the questions and put the email address in. Once it's done, they will actually get an image like this, and you'll see a screen down here at the bottom on their phone that they can turn back and forth. If we go back to my slide deck, their phones will show these goggles. That's what makes it virtual reality. So again, you don't have to be an expert in creating these things. All you have to do is click on the 360 button, put their email address in, and then it automatically sends it to their phone, and that 3D goggle, virtual reality goggle, appears there. Now, once that appears there, what's the best practice in them looking at it? Let me show you some real-world examples of this, and then we'll wrap up and I'll answer a couple of other questions. First of all, what are designers already using out there? Remember I asked you about your closing room? For the 33% of you who have closing rooms with big screen TVs on the wall, you can actually buy goggles like Oculus Rift, plug them into your computer, and then your client can stand up in your closing room with the goggles on and turn right and left, look up and down, and feel like they're in the room. So instead of looking at the wall, they can actually stand there and feel completely immersed in that environment. Now, I asked about the closing room's TV screen because you probably paid more than $600 for the TV screen. Right here, you can get these goggles for around $500 and plug them into your 2020 computer. Pretty nice. I actually have one customer I met at KBIS in January. He was putting 2 sets of goggles into a showroom so he could have couples look at it at the same time. Now on the right-hand side, these are other types of goggles. $70, $10. And people ask me all the time, hey John, where do you find these things? Where do you find these goggles? Now these goggles are meant for your cell phone or your client's cell phone. Where do you find these goggles? Well, let me go ahead and share my screen again. It's pretty simple. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of a little company called Amazon, but if you go to Amazon.com and type in VR goggles, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of VR goggles. They're anywhere from $10 to $100, and you can click on these. For instance, I can scroll down and click on this set right here. And you'll see it says that it's available for a 4 to 6 inch smartphone, iPhone 6, 6 Plus, Samsung Galaxy S7, 6 Edge. And what that means is the goggles right here, the front actually folds forward. You take your customer's phone, you put it inside the goggles, you snap it shut, you put it on their head, it actually encapsulates their eyes, and for whatever this was, I didn't see how much this one was, $24 or something like that, you can actually, I'm sorry, this one's $17. You can actually have somebody standing in your showroom viewing virtual reality. And all you did was click a button in view, put an email address in, they load it up on their phone, and you slide it into the plastic goggles. Now, it takes some time for that to load up, so I recommend you create the VR before they show up. Then give them the link, and then go ahead and put the goggles on in the closing room. So if I go back to my slide deck, in your showroom, lots of designers today either have these hooked up to the computer or they have these types of goggles sitting around the showroom. You know what? For $10, if they break every once in a while, not a big deal. Now, a lot of designers don't just want them to experience it in the showroom. They want it to experience it at home. There's a little something called Google Cardboard. And I actually know one dealer right now that has printed over 1,000 of these. And when his contractors and builders send the clients into the showroom, he actually uses a set of the plastic glasses. He usually uses a set of the plastic glasses for them to see it in the showroom, but when they leave, he hands them a set of these cardboard glasses that are branded with his company information all over them. He ordered them from Dodo Case, has his company logo all over, because that customer is going to go home, they're going to slide their phone inside the goggles, and they're going to show it to everybody in their family, all their friends. And as they show their new kitchen in a virtual reality environment to everyone, it has his company logo and information all over it. It's great marketing. I bet you it's better than getting a pen with your name on it or giving them a pad of paper with your name on it. You can go and buy these en masse with your logos on them as well. So that's a little best practice on how people are implementing VR. I know 6-9 months ago we talked about VR coming. VR is here. VR is happening. Matter of fact, I will tell you many times a week I'm talking to designers that are implementing VR in their showroom, or they're sending me information for the VR. Now, let me go ahead and wrap up right here. I want to recommend that everybody go ahead and join us at 2020spaces.com/community. It's a great place for everybody to share information back and forth. If you want more information or need to contact us, go to 2020spaces.com, or I'll go back to the slide in a moment that showed the phone number for sales, 866-698-2020. Please reach out to us with any questions, or if you're a prospect and you're adding 2020 to your business, get in touch with us right now. We'll help you with a special promotion. I want to thank each and every one of you. I hope everybody got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things and best practices that make you better at your job. We really appreciate you all as our partners. That's why we do these things. So I want to thank you for being a 2020 user. I want to thank you for using our software. I want to thank you for making better designs. I want to thank you for making your dreams, your customers' dreams come true. And I want to thank you for providing spaces that add value to their family and lives. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for partnering with 2020. And everyone have a great rest of your day.